going to. Good morning, everybody. We're so glad that you came. I think that, I'm Glenda Probst, and I own Nanny Transitions, and and my good friend Becky is going to help. Becky's really going to do most of this webinar today because this is her wheelhouse. This is what she really knows, really good at. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about why we wanted to do these workshops that we're doing right now. We realized a while back that a lot of the nannies that are in the Nanny Transitions group don't have, even if they've been a nanny for a long time, maybe they don't have all of the information that they need to be able to not just transition from a bad job and move on, but to know how to transition and move on into a new job and how to go out and find a new job. So we felt like we needed to start at the beginning. And so today Becky's going to be talking about the components of the job search. And before I let Becky introduce herself, I'm going to tell you that we have two very special giveaways today. This is kind of a cool story. Giovanna, who is on here with us today, Becky helped her with her resume and getting things updated for her new job, and things are going very well for her, and she's in a better place, and she, out of the goodness of her heart, wanted to pay it forward and give back to somebody who was going to be in a job search soon. So when someone in the group read what Giovanna had decided to do, it spurred them to also donate a resume update with Becky. So we have two updated resume packages to give away. And when Becky gets to in the workshop, she will tell you at some point in the workshop, she will tell you what you need to do to enter. I'm not going to tell you that right now, but at some point in the workshop, you will find out that information. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Becky.
Thanks, Glenda. Ooh, this sounds so secretive, doesn't it? Keep looking. I'm Becky Kavanaugh. My nanny career has been long and storied. I started in 1990 as a nanny. Before that was a preschool teacher and all that kind of stuff. And I was with that family for over 21 years. And then I went to another family for 3.5 years doing before and after school care. In the middle of all that, while I was nannying, I worked for 13 years in a nanny placement agency and developed their temporary service. So I also did temporary nanny work, blah, 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 who cares? Okay, so moving on, I started my own business, which is called Busy Bee Services. And mostly I help small businesses or single entrepreneur businesses get started with websites, social media, that kind of thing. I had a lot of nannies continuing to come to me for help. And so I decided to open up part of my business called The Hive, and it's just for nannies. So it's resumes, cover letters, whatever you need kind of thing. And so that's where I'm at now. And like Glenda said, we want to give back to the industry, and that's why we're doing these. It's to give back. It really is. And everything we're going to talk about today, you can do yourself. I'm going to help you figure that out. Okay, we're going to screen share, which always is fun because, there's a moment of what the heck, but hang on, people, hold on to your hats. And there's just going to be a moment. Okay, now it should fill your whole screen pretty much. If you're on your phone, I hope this is big enough screen for you. I have to move our little faces out of the way. Okay. So here we are, components of the, blah, blah, blah. Where am I going to get to? Okay. Just want to check. I'm going to do just a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about understanding your market.
Mhm.
Everything's different. We're going to talk about resumes. That is much more internationally true. We're going to talk about referrals, recommendations, and references. We're going to go into cover letters, what's entailed in that, how to make a professional statement or how to develop one, and where do you use it, and then a little bit about a portfolio. So it's a lot to cover. And Glenda's here to keep me on track. So if I start going down the tubes, she's going to haul me back in and get me back on track. Okay. Before we get started, I want to say something about using your phone. Okay, today my notes are on my phone because my printer didn't want to print. Let me tell you that if I had to write a document using my phone as my only source, I would be so frustrated. If that's your case, I understand why you seek other people to help you out because that would be just so hard to do. However, it can be done, but I think if you can get a hold of a tablet or a laptop or a desktop to do your document creation and then keep everything in the cloud that you can access on your phone and manipulate on your phone, that's great. But if you're trying to create on your phone, I totally understand how frustrating it is. Just reading notes off of a phone is really tricky. So if you're in that place where you don't know what to do and you only have your phone, let me know because there's some things that we can help you with you in a better state. Okay, moving on. Okay, let's talk about understanding your market. And this again is getting a feel for the area you're looking to have a job. It might not be where you are now, so you might need to do a lot more research, but it might be where you are located. You should be able to talk to agencies, look at their websites. What are families looking for? What are the agencies looking for? What are the qualifications? What do they expect you to have? Do they need you to have an application completed? Do they need to have your resume? What are they wanting? And then also, what are the families looking to pay? What are the benefit packages that are available? What kind of things are families providing? You should do a little bit of this work, and the best time to do any of this kind of work is before you really need to do it. Before you're looking, that's the time to be doing the research. So in that, I also want to say that if an agency has certain things, I'm going to call them hoops to jump through them. Don't make it difficult. Don't send an application in that says, see resume, see resume, see resume. From an agency's perspective, you get hundreds and hundreds of applications every week. If I have to look at your resume every time I'm looking at your application, that just is frustrating. So don't do that. Fill everything out completely if they ask you. So know those things, notes, and talk to other nannies in that location. They're a great source of information. Find out what's going on in that area, what to expect. They can give you tips on what nannies or what agencies are best. They can give you tips on where to find jobs. They can be great referrals. We'll talk about referrals in a little bit, but they can help lead you down the right path. If you're only looking online, I think you should talk to other people. So basically use all the resources available to you and know what the market norms are for your area. I know that the West Coast is different than the Midwest, than the South. Then the East Coast, everybody has market norms. Some areas really are so excited when someone has a tremendous amount of experience. And others are saying, play down the amount of time you've been a nanny, because they're looking for younger. They're looking for something. You want to be what they're looking for. So find out all of those things and then be honest about your actual skill sets and qualities. Kind of do a little check. Don't say, oh, I can do that, when you've never had any experience with that. Let's say it's about multiples. There's a job for multiples. You've never worked with multiples. This is new to you. But maybe you've worked with a variety of ages that are all kind of in the same bracket. You can talk about that and say, I have been able to balance a lot of things at one time. I've demonstrated that. So I would think that, and while I haven't worked with multiples, I'd be very interested in working with multiples, or I'd be happy to try working with multiples. Something like that. If there's a temp job with multiples, that's a great kind of opportunity to get some experience. And even babysitting for families. Those are great things to say. I haven't had a job with it, but I babysat for this family. They have twins. I feel confident I could do it. But don't say you can do something when you can't. And don't downplay what you can do. Definitely give us all you got. All right. Let's move on to the resume. A resume is really kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, because it's so important to get this right. It really is the summary of your experience and qualifications. And because our first introduction to an agency or a family is in paper and not in person, we really need to have this speak for you. This has to speak for me. So what am I going to put in it? So we're going to go over all of these things. So styles and functions. There are a bunch of styles out there. In the US, we have a variety. In the European Union, they have what's called European CV, which I've learned through Giovanna how to do. Woohoo! Let me just say it's a little complicated, but now I know how to do it. I understand the process, and it's because there are many, many countries, and they want to be able to have something that's similar from country to country. And it's like here in the US, we want to have something that works pretty much for any state. If every state had a version, we'd all be going completely insane. So there are, in the US, there are a couple of different styles. So the styles are a long version. That's what I'm going to call it, long format. This is my name for it, because it has everything in it in detail. If you've been a nanny for more than 10 years, it's going to be multiple pages long. That's the big guy. He's got everything in it. And even if you never use that type of a resume, you should have one, because it's kind of the place where it sits and holds everything. Then there is a more informal, shorter version. And in that, we're going to take out some of your skills that you have on every job. If you look at your jobs that you've had, there are certain skills that repeat themselves over and over again. Planning age-appropriate activities, planning meals and snacks, maybe, taking children to actually taking them places, all kinds of skills that you have that are nanny skills. Maybe you have household management skills. Maybe you have some newborn care skills. You can list all the skills in one area, and then when you get ready to list the job, then you only have to refer back to the type of skills that you're using. And then if there's something inside of that skill, inside of that job that's very unique, then you just write what that is. So it just simplifies everything, and it shortens up your resume to be a little bit tighter. The positives of that is that we are not we're not good readers anymore. We're great scanners. I mean, going on social media, we've become excellent scanners. We scan through all kinds of things and we take in little bits of information. This gives you the highlights in a chunked up version. So this is a new and different style. It works really well. And then there's a modern style. That's kind of a one-page highlight bullet points of your best things. You don't list every single little thing. You list skills, you list qualifications or qualities. You list some of your education, but maybe not every little thing. It's just a snapshot, a one-page snapshot that you can give. That's a great one to hand out to somebody or to include with an application if an agency doesn't require a resume, then you at least given them a little snapshot. So it doesn't matter what kind of resume that you're going to use, the whole function is to provide that work and educational experience so that prospective employers can kind of know who you are before they actually meet you. Again, the paper is going to do the talking for you. Okay, here are some must-haves for no matter what you're going to do. You're going to put your name at the top. Now, some people say, well, do I put my legal name or the name I'm called? I'm going to use the name Elizabeth because it's an easy one to kind of think of. If your legal name is Elizabeth, but you always are called Beth, that's what you go by, then put Beth. Okay? Even though Elizabeth is your full name. Because it personalizes it, but it also makes it identifiable to you. Like, you just never hear people talking about it. But if you have to sign something, then you're going to put Elizabeth, clearly. But then don't get too carried away with nicknames, because if you have a very site-specific nickname, don't use that. Use something that they can actually use and call you. For example, my name is not Rebecca. It's Becky. So I always use it. My family that I work for calls me Ba. Yep, I'm not going to use that. So, be sensible, but use the name that you go by. The contact information should be your email, and it should be your phone number. Make sure you write your phone number down correctly. It's very easy to just type it out, think you're right, and realize, whoopsie, no, I'm not. How do I know? Because I've tried to call people, it's the wrong number. You think, well, they should know their own number, but they just made a mistake. Same thing with your email. Make sure it's an email that you're actually going to monitor, because if you're giving this to a family, they may be contacting you via email. If you're giving your phone number to the family, be sure that your phone number has an answering response on it, that message going out that sounds appropriate. Music and crazy, hey, it's me, leave a message. That's not cool. Making sure it sounds professional, and be sure that you monitor it, then go back in and listen to the message and then respond quickly when people either email or text you or leave a message. Don't leave them sitting there and not respond quickly. People want to be responded to.
Becky,
Yes.
also with the email, be sure you have a professional email name, not Sexy Nanny or, name that reflects your profession. Okay.
That is a good one. Yeah, and if you have to get one specifically that's a little bit more professional, that is not your normal email, that's fine. And then monitor it. Don't let stuff sit in there. Good point. That is a good point. Then people will say, do I have to put, okay, they will ask, should I put my whole address? Okay, back in the day, when I was young, and I'm talking, that's a long time ago, you always put your full address. on your resume. Now I say, unless there's a good reason, you don't need the full address, but maybe, particularly if the agency has suggested it, your city and your state, or your city and your country, but maybe not your street address. And in some more urban areas, maybe that's giving away too much. Okay, I live in the Minneapolis metro. There are 3 different rings out from the metro, and some of those suburbs are considered elite, and some of the suburbs are considered kind of not elite, okay? If I live in the not elite suburb, people make an assumption about it. So use your own brain, but city, state is plenty, or leave it off. That's fine. Then we're going to get into your work history. All right. Start with the most recent and go backwards. Don't start with your first job. Start with your last job and then go backwards from there. Why? Because that's the meat and the strength of your experience, and you want to start with your most experience. Even if that job maybe wasn't great or wasn't wonderful, you should at least have it written down, okay? Because you don't want to start with your first job. If I started with my first job, it would be McDonald's. I mean, hello. That doesn't say much. So then you want the name of the family, just like a last name, or if you know they prefer not to have their name out there, put private family. That's perfectly fine. The city and state that they're located in, I think that is important, so they kind of know where you are. And then the month and year of your start date, month and year of the end date of that job. Why is the month and year important? Because you say, I started in 2020 and the job ended in 2021. What does that really mean? A few months or almost 2 years? There's a difference. So the length of that job is important. If you know the actual date, that's really amazing. Go ahead, put that down. That's wonderful. And then a little section about your duties and responsibilities. You might not need to go into super detail, but you do want to give a picture of what you've done. If you're going to use that format that I talked about that has the skills in it, that's where you would put them in the skill set, and they just refer to the skill set. But you want to tell people what you do in the job. And then we're going to go to the education. In the education, if you have any degrees, the school you attended, the years you attended, that goes first. Then your certifications, and dates and years from those, if you have that, and any continuing education courses, anything like that. Often you have a certificate from those. You don't need to list every single thing, but you certainly can. For some people, their education is very extensive. They may have a whole page of educational information, which can be very impressive to families. So you should have a space for that, whether you use it in every resume or not. You should know all those things. Here's a concept for you. If your education is stronger and presents a stronger view of you over your experience, then lead with the education. So you have your name, your educational information, and then your experience. But if your experience is the bulk of who you are and really tells the tale, put that first. So newer nannies or people just getting started in the field may not have a lot of experience, but their education may be really solid. So they're going to put that first. Some of you know that one of the children that I nannied for is a nanny. And she has a master's degree in early childhood education. She leads with that because that's really strong. And then she goes in with her nanny information. At some point down the road, she's going to switch that. Her education or her experience will take precedent over her education. Now she's going to lead with that. So that's just an example. Glenda, any ideas on that? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to mention my situation. I was a child care center director for 9 years. So that was what I always led with, was just like your former charge does. That matters because that's what they're really interested in is, your experience with children. So that varies for everybody. Becky, we're almost to 11:30.
I'm going to speed up. I'm going to
Okay.
speed up. I'm telling you right
know.
now, I'm speeding up. Okay, I'm going to
Let me-
also tell you that we're giving you a handout with this. And this handout that I have written is quite comprehensive. So, yeah, it's even more comprehensive than that. It's a whole booklet. So, so don't panic. I should have told you that earlier. So all of you have been panicking. Oh, well, there you go. We're halfway through and it's panicking. Now I'm panicking. Okay. So the next section down I want to talk about is any additional information, any other kind of qualifiers. That's your CPR, your first aid, your AED. You can say when is expiring, or you can say it's current, whatever way you want to say that. Your driver's license. You don't put the license down, you could just say I have a license from the state of blank or the country of blank. And if it's current or when it's expiring. If you have a passport, you might want to let people know that you have that. And if it's current or expiring. And then any special skills. Maybe you're, a swim teacher, or languages. What kind of proficiency do you have in those languages? Maybe you have experiences with special circumstances and children with special needs of some kind. That's where you want to put that. Anything like that is going to buff up things too, but that kind of is where you end it. People will ask, what are some of the optional things to put in? Sometimes people will put their social media contact information in the contact section. They'll say, you can get me at Facebook here, Instagram here. You've basically given them permission to come into your pages as well. If they can contact you there, they can see you there. They know where you are. Should I say more about that? Come on. If your pages are not viewable for parents, don't give them that information. They can seek you. They can go look for you. Absolutely. But don't give it to them if you don't feel like that's a good place to be. But some people will do that. So if you're cool with that, go ahead. Another piece is I always call it an optional, but I think it's super important, is a professional statement or personal philosophy or your philosophy of nannying or something like that. It's about 3 sentences or so. And that kind of goes right underneath your name and your contact information. And then you put that personal statement or that professional statement. Even if you choose not to put it in your resume, and I understand that, you might want to put it in a cover letter. You might want to put it in your portfolio. And even if you don't want to print it out, okay. But you better know it. You better know why you do what you do, why you're good at what you do. And you better know how to explain that, because sure as you're born, they're going to ask you. And if you're unprepared for the big question, that's a problem. So we are going to kind of touch on that a little bit. There are lots of ways to format. I told you there's these long forms, these shorter forms, the modern forms. Again, the CV for Europe. There's all these ways of doing it. You can find templates in a lot of places. If you use Google Docs, they have a lot of them. If you go search on different ones, you can find them and use them as a guide. If you're using a template, be sure that you go in and touch every area of the template and change it to talk about you. Why do I say that? Because I've seen resumes come in where I know they used a template. You know how I know? Because they left pieces of the template sitting in there, untouched. It's not about them, it's about the template. It's about information that's been put in. I'm like, oh, proofread, check it, double check it, and have someone you trust who's going to tell you the truth. This is good. Here's where it needs to be fixed. This looks kind of iffy. I don't understand what you're talking about. We're going to give you really good feedback. You should have it checked. And if you need a check on how to proof, actually reading things backwards is a good way. So we're trained to read right to left, top to bottom. Start at the bottom and read your sentences kind of backwards and kind of look. Do all those numbers go? Does everything look right? And it totally switches your brain up, and then you'll see things that aren't right, be able to fix them. Also, when you're formatting, look at the margins, where everything lines up, things line up together, you know, so everything looks visually appealing, but also easier to read. If it's all kind of jig-jaggy and not kind of lined up and you think, oh, that doesn't matter, it does. It's very fatiguing to read something that's like that. And people who have to work hard to read things don't retain it and don't really take it in. And they're starting to make assumptions about you. This person doesn't care enough to line things up properly. This person is not a detailed-oriented person. That might not be true, but you've given them that feeling and that impression. So take a look at it, have someone else take a look at it, making sure that you've got everything right. We're going to go into referrals, recommendations, and references. And Glenda, I know you have a few things you want to say about that.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between a reference or a referral or a recommendation. So there are three different things, okay? A reference would be like, do you know any nannies? And you could say, well, you know, I might know, or, you know, I know Susie Jones is looking, and you give a name. That's a referral. A reference is, oh yes, I know Susie Jones, and you know, she's very involved in, you know, her profession, and she, you know, she's in my nanny support group. She seems very dedicated. And so, you know, that's like a reference. Excuse me, a recommendation is, I know Susie Jones and she is an amazing nanny. She's great with kids. She's great with parents. She's works hard. She's got a good work ethic. So see, there are three different things there, and you have to be really careful, especially, you know, when I was president of NAN, people would ask me, oh, can I use you for a reference? And I would say, I will be a reference for you as long as you understand I can only speak to your professional commitment, your involvement, and your willingness to further your professional horizons. I can't say you're great with kids because I've never seen you with children. And people would actually get angry with me about that. But you have to understand that it's your reputation that you're putting on the line. So you have to think about the words you use when someone asks you if you will help them when they're looking for a job, okay? So there's three different things there that sound very similar that some people think are just all the same, but they're not. And then the other thing that I think Becky would probably address is, and if you're going to use someone for a reference, you need to be sure that they know, because it helps them to be prepared, to think about what they want to say about you, to put forth the best version of who you are, you know? So you want people who you know are going to help you put forth the best version of you, and you want to give them a heads up that you need them to help you so that they can put forth the best version of you. Okay. So that's all I had to say, Becky.
That's perfect. That's wonderful. That gives us a good start. So referrals, as she said, are really wonderful, to refer someone. And honestly, number one in the US, getting a job is through a referral. It still is. It has been for years. I mean, not through an agency, not through some other system. It's being referred because people kind of trust someone else. But that referral only could go so far, just as Glenda has told us. So we asked for recommendations and a letter of recommendation. Okay. So letters of recommendation are you asked from people who can attest to your childcare skills because they have the most gravitas. Those are the ones you want. You can have letters of recommendation from people like Glenda was just saying, who can talk about your qualities, your character, their experience with you, but they can't talk about your childcare. Those are additional, helpful, but they don't have the oomph you want. So you always want to ask people who can actually attest to your childcare experience. And so they can be previous employers, someone that you've done long-term childcare for, like babysitting every Saturday for 3 years. They're great ones to ask. They understand. Someone you've done a temporary job for. If you volunteer directly with children, even though you're not working for them, they have seen you with children. That's a great one to have as well, especially if you don't have a whole lot of others to ask for. And yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say. Okay, so if they ask you, how do I make a letter of recommendation? All right, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need. You're going to have a date on the letter. So tell them that. Tell them that they need to address the letter either to your family or to whom it may concern, or if you can be more specific than that, that's wonderful. Your family is a great one because it works for anybody, works for the agency as well. And then an opening paragraph, that first paragraph is, how do I know you? So how do I know Glenda and what is our connection? Whatever that is. How their relationship with you. And then you go into the body, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs where they get to talk about how wonderful you are, all the great things you've done, examples, little stories, little vignettes about you and why you're great. And then a closing paragraph usually is to say that that they highly recommend you and that they're happy to talk with another family about you. The signature area is where they say, sincerely so-and-so, and then they usually put their contact information in there so that they know they can be contacted. If you have a family who does not want to be contacted, but wants their letter of recommendation to stand as the reference for you, okay, they don't want to be called, they should make that clear in there and then not put any contact information. There are a lot of reasons why people do that. The letter of recommendation is still valuable. If I'm working in an agency and we have letters of recommendation that do not also include people on the reference list, okay? People in your reference list are definitely going to get called, but you also have some letters. We actually in the office would call the people on the letters of recommendation to confirm that they wrote the letter and to ask if they had anything else they wanted to include. So if you have some letters like that, you might want to also let them know they could be contacted by the agency. And if they don't want to, then the agency needs to know that, or prospective families need to know that. Okay. References. Glenda just said it. They have to be able to attest to your childcare skills, and they are going to get called by agencies. Sometimes agencies will use email, but most often they call because that phone call, hearing their voice, hearing how they respond tells a lot of the story. A reference who is surprised that they've been used as a reference will not give a good reference, even if they love you, because they're surprised. And when they're surprised and are prepared, and then sometimes they'll even have to call back and say, wait, I want to add something because I wasn't ready, because they just didn't know. Sometimes they're so surprised that it comes off as very negative, even though they might have been a good reference if they had known. So Glenda made it really clear. They need to be asked every single time you search. Every time you search, you have to ask. You should let them know who's calling. Is it an agency? Is it families? Is it both? When you start your search, if you stop searching, let them know that too. Like, oh, well, I found my position, so you shouldn't get any more phone calls. I mean, it's nice to just double check with them, confirm how they want to be contacted. Make sure you have the right phone number or email, or if they want to be texted, make sure that that's correct. Your reference list should be separate, a separate document from your resume. They should stand alone, because you always want to be in control of who you give that reference list to. And maybe you give your resume to somebody, but you think, I don't think this is a good fit for me, and you don't want to go any further, then they don't have your reference list. So keep that to yourself until you're ready to give it out. Agencies often ask for it in an application, or they may ask for it as a separate document so that they can do the work they need to do. You need to be prepared with it and know how they use it. Okay, I said that. If you have a bad reference, or you have to deal with the fact that you might have a bad reference, first thing, if you know that something ended poorly and that family is probably not going to give you a great reference, tell the agency, tell the prospective family that you're talking to right up front. Don't let them find that out when they try to get the reference. Tell them straight up, this is what happened. It ended poorly. I worked for them for 3 years or whatever, but it ended poorly. They don't want to be a reference for me. They might try to call them just to confirm that. Okay, maybe they get a bad reference from them, or they're reluctant to give information, or it comes off cranky or whatever. But you've given them the full picture, so they're prepared, so they can make their own thoughts. Then you have other letters of recommendation. You have other references to hold on to. So utilize that to show, look, everybody else is saying great things. These people, she already told me it didn't end well. Thus, they didn't give a great reference. You have a better perspective of the story. Also, if you have been doing due diligence and getting review forms from, or reviews from your families that you've worked for in writing, people, the reviews in writing, you bring those to the family, then they can see, oh my gosh, they loved her, loved her, loved her, loved her. It ended poorly, but they really did appreciate her. So that's a huge, important thing. Okay. Anything else about referrals, recommendations, references that I didn't cover, Glenda? Move on. Good. Okay. Going on. We're going to talk about cover letters and why they're important. It's often used in a portfolio. Cover letters are often used with your resume. They're just a nice thing to write to a family, particularly if you're the one sending off the information. Sometimes agencies will write their own cover letter about you. If that's the case, then you should know what they're writing. It's a good idea to know what it is. But it's a more personalized introduction. So you're going to have the letters going to be constructed by using a greeting. Dear family works great. Or if you're going to write to the agency, write to the agency. If you can write to the actual family using their name and their information, great. But you can make something more blanket. introductory paragraph, who are you? Kind of a little bit about, that you're looking for a full-time job, or just a tiny bit about you, maybe 2 or 3 sentences. And then here's the chance to put that professional statement in place and stick in there, here's what I do as a nanny. Here's how I come to a family as a nanny. These are the kinds of things that I will do, that I'm looking forward to doing. Maybe again, the overview of what you're looking for, your signature, and your contact information. It's 1 page. It's very straightforward and it's very easy. If you can adapt that, as I said, for a specific family, using the ages of their children, their names, that just brings you up in their minds. It's a good idea if you can do it. If you don't, if you're using an agency, you don't know who they're sending. You may know who they're sending it to, but they're sending it to a lot of people, and make it more broad. But every time you can adapt it personally, that's better. Okay, we're going to talk about, anything about cover letters, Glenda? No, okay. Professional statement. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time on this. The value of a professional statement is your opportunity to tell people your philosophy about being a nanny, the principles in which you operate, because not every family is for you, and you're not for every family. And this is a way to get your head, even if you never put this out on paper, around why you do what you do and what you do well. So you should write this out, even again, if you don't use it. So you would want to have something that talks about it could be your nanny philosophy or your childcare philosophy. Don't use a lot of jargon or little, cutesy pie things people don't understand. Sometimes people say, I really am into the Montessori principles, and they go on this little triad about things that not everybody understands what Montessori is. Not everybody understands what really Montessori is, because that's a very specific thing. Same thing with like Waldorf or any of that kind of stuff. So try to keep it as if you're writing to someone who knows nothing about childcare, because a first-time parent truly doesn't really know. So you want to, say, hey, I value a relationship. I value, experiences with your children. How do you do things? Emphasize your professional experience. What have you actually done for others? Without telling them, in my last family, I did this. With 2 families ago, I did. Don't do that. Talk about a more general opening of experience that you have. If your education is very strong, then put some emphasis on that. And just emphasize, what are you bringing to the position? Why would they consider you? Think about putting your best foot forward. This is your chance to say why you're great at what you do. We hardly ever get to do this. We're not always very good at it. Some of us tend to downplay things. This is not the time to downplay. This is the time to put it all shiny. But again, be real and be honest. If you aren't all that your professional statement says you are, they're going to find out. Any thoughts on that, Glenda?
Can you talk just a little bit about how long that should be? Should it just be 1 page?
I think it should just be 1 page, and usually 3 paragraphs should do it. If you make yourself to tighten it up nice and tight like that, and you're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of the truth of things. Yeah. If someone gives you, 3 pages to write something like a dissertation, first of all, people aren't going to read it, and second of all, that's not really what you need. You need to just kind of keep, so a page is good. Several paragraphs is going to do it.
All right. Yeah, and I liked what you talked about philosophies, because, you can say, oh, I'm a firm believer in the Montessori method, and a parent might sit there and go, oh, yeah, we believe that too. But in reality, they have no clue what you're talking about. So the more general you can be, you can use those kinds of techniques, but use them in general and be specific. Don't do a broad, don't put a name on it so much.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
That's great.
Okay. Now we're going to hit the portfolio, and I could spend a couple of hours here. We're not going to. Don't panic, everyone. You don't have to have a portfolio, but if you do, here's what you need to know. Okay. So there are lots of ways of using this. This can be a great thing to take into an interview with a family as a focus of attention. In the interview, when you're talking with somebody and you get kind of that nervousness of looking straight at someone is a little freaky. You know what? It freaks them out too, by the way. They won't tell you that, but it's true. And if you have something to focus on in front of you that just lays out who you are, then it's so relieving to be able to say, and see, I've done this, and then I have this. And okay, so that can be super helpful. We talked about it in the red flags webinar that we did about taking notes. So having notes and taking notes, that's also a way to relieve that. But having something there to focus our attention on, so I'm not just staring at you, is really, it's really helpful. And it also gives a place where they can really see the breadth of the things that you do. So it could be a printed binder. That's a perfect thing to send in there. You've printed out all the material. It's in a nice binder, whether it's a 3-ring binder, one of those slipcover binder things. Everything is there, and you can just flip it through. Just exactly. It's just so nice. It's just so professional feeling. I don't know what else to say about that. If you want to do it in a shared document, like a Google Doc folder with them, that's a possibility. The thing is that they're going to look at that when you're not in front of them. So you don't have as much explanation unless you're doing, let's say, a Zoom meeting or something with them. Yeah, then you could share the doc. You could screen share it if you want to and chat about it, just like we're doing this. So that's a possibility. That's a digital share. And then sometimes people use a digital, like, one page, I'm going to call it a website. It's just an easy way to have something where you can give a private password protected page that they can go in and look at, and who's looking at it. You have control over it, but your documents can all sit in there. They can look at it. They can't manipulate any of your material. You know who you gave it to. So that's also a nice way to do that. Some people will use LinkedIn as their portfolio. LinkedIn used to allow a lot more things to be in there. They've kind of tightened up what they can have, but you can still have a lot of information. So you can refer them to your LinkedIn if you want to use that. There are other options out there if you want to use just digital. So those are possible things. Here's some of the stuff you want to include. That cover letter that we talked about, or you can call it an about me page, with your professional statement. That can be all together in one little bundle, or one thing, or just the professional statement, however you want to do it. Your resume, whatever version you want. You might have a couple of versions in there. Maybe you show them your long version and you have a really short version in there that you hand to them and let them keep. You can just give that to them. They have it for themselves. Letters of recommendation can sit in there. Your employment reviews can sit in there. Your certificates can sit in there. Your reference list can be in there. And examples of routines, or examples of activities that you've done, or how do you approach children in different circumstances by giving little stories of what you did, or examples of menus or outings or things like that. Sometimes people will put in photos, and I'm going to talk about photos in a second. Generally, if you're going to put photos of activities that include children, make sure there's no children's faces showing. It's better if you just kind of concentrate on the activity rather than the children themselves, because in the family's eyes, they're going to think, oh, you're going to take pictures of my children, and I don't really like that. And make sure that if you have children in there, the face isn't showing, but that you have permission to use that photo, that the family has given you permission, and that you make it clear you have that permission. So I want to take care of how you use photos. My other thought about photos, because I want to specifically talk about in not relating to the portfolio so much, but sometimes people will include their photo in their resume or other documents that they're handing over to families or to agencies. And I just want you to be sure you know if an agency requires a photo, how are they using that photo? Is it going to be online on their website? Are you okay with that? If you are, that's great. Do they need a headshot? Usually that's all they need is a headshot. And when I talk about a headshot, think of your shoulders on up. Just this little square. Don't give them any more than that. And make sure it looks like yourself. Don't get too dolled up. Right? Don't get too dolled up. Look like your normal self. Look pleasant. You're trying to share a little bit about who you are with them. Kind of think about your background. I mean, my background's a little messy, but you're okay with that, aren't you? But if I'm taking a picture, I'm going to stand against something nice. Look at what Glenda's got behind her. That's a nice picture. Back up. So think about that. All right. The reason I have cautions about photos on things is because people make assumptions from the photo. And if, again, the agency insists on it, you just do what they say. Just do what they tell you. If you know your market says you should have a photo with your resume, then do that. If you know these things. But people will look at the photo and assume things. They'll assume age. They'll assume weight. They'll assume ethnicity. They'll assume all kinds of things from that, which may or may not be correct. And that always makes me just cautious about it. The idea of your resume or any of the things we've talked about is to get you from the paper part to meeting people. Because in person is where you want to be. And in person is where any kind of prejudicial thoughts that they have can be diminished. Because now you're in front of them and they're like, oh, I thought this, but now I see it's this. So you always want to take from this paper to the personal. And that's why I have a thing about photos. Glenda, thoughts on that?
I think that you pretty much covered that.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah, it's great.
All right. So Glenda, so again, yeah, look at this one, people. Again, I want to just remind you, you have a handout coming and it is quite comprehensive. So if you thought, man, she just slurped through so much of that stuff, I didn't even understand what she was talking about. When you read it, it will help solidify what it is that I just said. And we talked about this wonderful drawing that we have for two things. This is the phrase that pays, people. This is the phrase that pays. When you are so you're going to be asked to provide this statement. You heard me say it before, the best time to prepare is when you don't need to. Because if you're in a panic to get ready, to get all this material ready, you're going to make little mistakes. So when you don't need it, that's when you should be doing the work.
It should be ongoing. Really should be something that you just do from time to time, you know. And that way, when you feel like your life's falling apart and when you're ready to go back out and get back there out there in the job market, you'll know that you've got that under control. No, and that's a great feeling because when everything else in your life feels out of control, the things that you do have in your control are what really are the most important. So, Becky, so appreciate you doing this today. You really didn't do it with me. You really did it for all of us. And we so appreciate you. And, you know, and if you're interested in this beautiful giveaway, one of the things that the second person who is going for this, resume update, what she told me she wanted me to say to you, which I forgot a while ago, was that when she went through a really hard transition, Becky and I were there to support and guide her through it. And so she wanted to pay that forward. And I know that Giovanna, those are her words as well. So Giovanna, we just love you and we thank you and we appreciate you. And we appreciate all of you. And I really appreciate you taking your time today to come and be here. I think this is such an important part of your transition. So Becky, are we going to let them ask questions for just a few minutes or?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I can't believe I can't believe I brought that horse into the barn. Wow.
I am so proud of you. I didn't even have to do this.
I'm astounded. I'm going to stop screen sharing now.
Right? This was a ton of information, but I think that it's a ton of good information. And the thing about it is that probably it's not information that you maybe already didn't know, but now it's all in one place. So when you have that question, oh, what am I supposed to put in my cover letter? Oh, what should I put in a portfolio? Oh, what should I do with my resume? You've got it. All you have to do, she's provided this beautiful handout. You're going to have it all right there. So thank you. Thank you. Okay. And if anybody has any questions, they can unmute themselves and ask. We'll give you a minute.
Or not.
Or not. Or if you have a statement, you know, if you have a comment that you want to make or whatever. One thing I am going to ask is if you got something out of this workshop, I'd like for you to really go back on the group and really talk it up, because Becky and I are really kind of passionate about this. This is something that's just kind of evolved and we've really become passionate about it. And we have a whole series of workshops that we're going to be doing with you. But, you know, we have to have people participating and people interested in order for it to be worth our time. So if we're only doing it for 1 or 2 people, it's, you know, it's really not worth it. We had 23 people that are either said they wanted to be here today or they wanted to get the recording, which that's about a third of our group. So that I think is phenomenal. I think we're off to a good start. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you'll go back and post in the group and start, whoever does it, new thread. I see somebody has a chat on here. Oh, Buffy says, thank you, ladies.
Buffy
Buffy,
thank
you're very welcome. Yeah, you're very welcome. I would suggest you don't put it under the video for today, because I'm going to delete that probably so that, you know, people don't get confused about it whenever we do the next video series. But whoever goes on there and can start a new thread, that'll be great. And then y'all could just post under it if you want to do that. But you know, we want you to be honest. We don't want you to say it if you don't feel it. But if you feel passionate about what you learned today and this was helpful, then we want you to go back and let other people know that. Okay. All right. Well, wow, we're done 9 minutes early. I'm so impressed. You did such a great job.
I cannot believe it. I truly cannot.
Ivana, did you want to say something?
I want to say thank you for letting me be part of the group and for the help I had in the past few years. And that I really hope for the people in the group to find their own right place, because they are a really great person, and when we struggle, we need some happy, and there is an happy at the end of the road. So I wish everybody to find their own happy And even if it lasts for a week, for a month, or a few years, there is the happy. And maybe sometimes we need to go through the struggle to understand the happy. And but we have each other, and we can talk to each other, because as a nanny, it's difficult to talk to somebody else. So, and in this group, I found my nanny family, and that's why I'm very happy to be here, and I hope to be of support to other people as much as I had it in the past. That's me.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
You know, that's everybody. That's everybody here. I mean, we have such an incredible group of people in this group. You know, it isn't me, it isn't Becky, it isn't just you, it's all of us together
Yeah.
going through the same experience and helping each other along with what we've learned and using our experience to support each other. So that's right, Lucretia, we are a family. We're a family. And Jennifer, I know you missed the beginning, but that's okay. And we'll get you the video. You know, everybody, even if you were here, you'll get the recording. Okay. And you'll also get a certificate of participation. So, and we will announce the winner of the resume updates on April the 14th. But I will put all of that in an email this afternoon. So you'll get an email and it will have the link to the video. It will have your certificate of participation. It will have Becky's handouts and the deadline information on the giveaways. Anything else, Becky?
That sounds great. That's
Okay. And it'll come from Nanny Transitions, because in the past I've sent it from my personal email, but I've decided we need to have all this come back from Nanny Transitions email. So it will come from Nanny Transition. Okay. So before we sign off, does anybody else have anything they want to say? I mean, you're welcome to. You can unmute yourself and talk if you want to. Put your
Apparently-
faces on if you want to. I'd
apparently
love to see your
not.
faces. Okay. Well, it was great to be with you today. I think somebody leave.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. It was great to be with you today. And the next one that we're going to do, Becky, have we zeroed in on a date?
Yes. May
Okay.
15th.
Why don't you talk about that?
I forgot what we're doing.
The best, putting your best version, the best version of you.
Oh, yes. But you're something about, well, basically it'll be about interviewing, all of the pros, cons, and ups and downs of interviewing. Yeah.
Yeah.
May 15th.
May 15th. Okay, that's May the 15th.
Yep.
And there's something else I was going to say. Oh, I was going to say that on the portfolio section, there's some really nice portfolios on Amazon that I got some from my some of my artwork, and they zip, and you know, they have the enclosure, and they come in colors, and they're very, very nice. I think I was going to tell you what the one I got was. It was the brand was, there's one called Stylio, Itoyo, but the one that I got was not that. It was 9x12, and it was done well art. It was a 9x12 portfolio for $9.99, so it's a really good price. And yeah, so anyway, it's just something I pass along. Okay.
Helpful.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming and for sharing your morning with us. And Jennifer, that's fine. We're always going to make the recordings available for who wants them, but we're not going to put them out to everybody. You know, we want you to have to make a little bit of effort to get this information. So that's, you know, that's why we're not just going to do a drawing for the resume update giveaways. You've got to do a little bit of work. So, okay. All right. Well, if you want to sign off, you can sign off and we'll shut the room down. Okay. Mwah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again, Becky.
welcome. Did you want to stop the recording?
Yeah, I'll stop it. Thank you.